two parts to the preamble, I guess, where there's the robbery of Pumpkin and Honey Bunny robbing the restaurant, and then Vincent and Jules are driving to this place. They're talking about travel, which is funny because travel is sort of my thing, and they're talking about going to McDonald's, in other countries, which is such an American instinct thing to do, and how those little differences are happening. But as they're talking about travel to Europe or the propriety of a foot massage, we realize that something very serious involving handguns, hopefully, preferably shotguns, is going to happen. So it's an interesting narrative moment that the film opens with.
Yeah, he's talked about that he likes the idea, and you see this throughout the scripts that he writes, but it's really, really clear in this particular instance, the idea of sort of demystifying people that we don't think about in a very human way. And so, the hitman is such a figure of, of fear and toughness and masculinity. And yet the idea is that what we're seeing before the shotguns come out, the handguns come out, before we know that this is anything involving guns, is we're just seeing two guys on their way to work.
But the funniest thing about Europe is?
What?
It's the little differences. I mean, they got the same shit over there that they got here, but it's just there. It's a little different.
Example?
All right, well, you can walk into a movie theater in Amsterdam and buy a beer. And I don't mean just like a paper cup. I'm talking about a glass of beer. And in Paris, you can buy a beer in McDonald's. And you know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris?
They don't call it a quarter pounder with cheese?
Oh, man, they got the metric system. They wouldn't know what the fuck a quarter pounder is.
And what do they call it?
They call it Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
That's right.
Just on their way to work and talking about their lives and just making small talk and chit chat. Which, first of all, it's daring to start basically your narrative with chit chat, with just everyday conversation. But it's also Quentin Tarantino chit chat, so it's funny and it's sharp and it's got these little these little trills of popular culture in there. But we're beginning with the idea that these guys are not Leon the Professional, which came out that same fall, if memory serves. They're not these sort of indestructible killers, a la Schwarzenegger and Stallone, who, let's face it, were kind of the action heroes of the day. He's setting them up as human and thus vulnerable. And the vulnerability of these two characters is vital because later on in the film, one of them is going to be killed and one of them is going to have a spiritual awakening. And so by seeing them first, before we know that they're killers, as just coworkers, as guys, as people going to work, shooting the shit, then those eventual twists on the characters aren't the same shock that they would be in a Stallone movie or a Schwarzenegger movie.
Yeah, for years I just thought that was just sort of funny dialogue about ordering a Le Big Mac in Europe or giving foot massages, but it's setting the stakes for what Vince is up against with Mia.
Yes.
And so it's very much tied to all the apprehension we feel on his behalf later in the movie.